The photograph shows a man smiling at the edge of a cliff, the sunset painting the sky orange behind him. His eyes are bright, his posture relaxed, and his hand is raised in a casual wave. 24 hours after this picture was taken, Derek Holloway would vanish from the face of the earth. The camera that captured this moment was found 3 weeks later, buried under a pile of rocks. And what investigators discovered in the other photographs would change everything they believed about his disappearance. Derek Holloway was 34 years old when he decided to take a solo hiking trip through the remote wilderness of northern Montana. He lived in Portland, Oregon, where he worked as a financial analyst for a mid-sized investment firm. His colleagues described him as quiet but friendly, the kind of man who always remembered birthdays and brought coffee for the team on Monday mornings. He had been divorced for 2 years and had recently started seeing a therapist to work through what he called the lowest point of his life. The trip to Montana was supposed to be a fresh start, a way to reconnect with himself and find peace in nature. Derek had always loved the outdoors, and his social media was filled with photographs from various hiking adventures across the Pacific Northwest. His mother, Linda Holloway, later told reporters that she had been worried about him going alone, but Derek had insisted he needed the solitude to think and heal. He arrived at the Glacier National Park area on September 15th, checking into a small motel in the town of Columbia Falls. The owner of the motel, a woman named Patricia Gaines, remembered him clearly because he stayed for 3 nights and always returned before dark. She said he seemed calm and content, often sitting on the porch of his room, reading books about mountain wildlife and trail navigation. Nothing about his behavior suggested anything was wrong. On the morning of September 18th, Derek set out for what he told Patricia would be a challenging day hike to a remote overlook, known locally as Eagle Jas Rest. It was not an official trail, but experienced hikers in the area knew about it. The path was difficult, requiring nearly 8 hours of hiking through dense forest and rocky terrain to reach the summit. Derek packed his gear carefully, including a digital camera, emergency supplies, and enough food and water for the day. He never returned to the motel that night, and Patricia reported him missing the following morning. Search and rescue teams were dispatched immediately, but the vast wilderness made the operation incredibly difficult. Helicopters flew over the area, and ground teams with dogs searched every known trail. Days passed with no sign of Derek Holloway, and hope began to fade among his family members who had traveled to Montana to join the search. Then, on October 9th, a hunter named Carl Whitmore discovered Derek's camera buried beneath a carefully arranged pile of stones about 2 miles from Eagle Jas Rest. The camera was protected inside a waterproof bag, which struck investigators as strange. It seemed intentional, as if someone wanted the camera to be found eventually, but also wanted to keep it hidden temporarily. The memory card contained 47 photographs, and what they revealed would become the center of an investigation that still puzzles authorities today. The first 30 photographs were normal, showing scenic views of the forest, wildlife, and Derek's smiling face at various points along the trail. The timestamps showed they were all taken on September 18th between 7 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. The photograph of Derek waving at the cliff was number 31, taken at exactly 4:17 in the afternoon according to the camera's internal clock. The lighting was beautiful and Derek appeared happy and healthy. But it was photograph number 32 that made investigators pause and study the image for hours. Taken just 3 minutes later, the photograph showed the same cliff edge, but Derek was no longer in the frame. Instead, the camera had captured what appeared to be a second person standing about 50 feet behind where Derek had been posing. The figure was partially obscured by trees, but the shape was unmistakably human, and they appeared to be watching the spot where Derek had stood. Photographs 33 through 47 became increasingly disturbing in their implications. They showed various angles of the forest, some blurry and others sharp, but each one seemed to capture glimpses of that same distant figure. In some images, the person appeared closer. In others, they seemed to be moving parallel to the camera's position. The final photograph, number 47, was completely black, taken at 9:42 at night. Investigators enhanced the images using advanced software, hoping to identify the mysterious figure. The results were inconclusive, but they determined it was likely a man of average height wearing dark clothing. There were no other hikers registered in that area on September 18th, and no one came forward to identify themselves as the person in the photographs. The case took another disturbing turn when authorities examined Derek's personal life more closely. His therapist, after being granted permission by Derek's family, revealed that Derek had been receiving strange letters in the weeks before his trip. The letters were unsigned and contained no return address, but their content was deeply unsettling. They referenced specific details about Derek's daily routine, his favorite coffee shop, and even the route he took to work each morning. Derek had dismissed the letters as the work of a harmless person with too much time, but his therapist had urged him to report them to the police. Derek never did, and the letters were never recovered from his Portland apartment. His family searched everywhere but found nothing, leading some to believe Derek had destroyed them or hidden them somewhere only he knew. 3 months after Derek's disappearance, a woman named Sarah Chun contacted the authorities with information that added another layer to the mystery. Sarah was a wildlife photographer who had been working in the same general area of Montana during September. She told investigators that on the evening of September 18th, she had heard what sounded like 2 men arguing somewhere in the forest below her campsite. She could not make out the words, but she remembered that one voice sounded panicked, while the other remained calm and measured. The argument lasted about 10 minutes before everything went silent. Sarah had assumed it was other hikers having a disagreement and thought nothing of it until she saw the news reports about Derek's disappearance weeks later. Despite extensive searches of the area where Sarah heard the argument, no additional evidence was found. Derek's body was never recovered, and no suspect was ever identified in connection with the mysterious figure in the photographs. The case officially remains open, classified as a missing person investigation with suspicious circumstances. Derek's mother, Linda, spent the next several years trying to find answers. She hired private investigators, appeared on television programs dedicated to unsolved cases, and even traveled back to Montana multiple times to search the wilderness herself. She passed away in the spring of 2 years ago, never knowing what happened to her only son. The photograph of Derek waving at the cliff has been shared millions of times on the internet, becoming one of the most haunting images in the history of missing person cases. People study the background, searching for clues that might have been missed. They zoom in on the trees, analyze the shadows, and debate endlessly about what might have happened in the minutes after that picture was taken. Some believe Derek encountered a stranger with violent intentions, someone who had perhaps followed him from Portland after sending those threatening letters. Others theorize that Derek staged his own disappearance, carefully hiding his camera to create a mystery that would never be solved. A few even suggest something more sinister, that the figure in the photographs was not entirely human, though investigators have always dismissed such theories. The truth is that nobody knows what happened to Derek Holloway after he smiled and waved for his camera on that beautiful September afternoon. The wilderness of Montana keeps its secrets buried deep beneath the pine trees and rocky slopes. Somewhere out there the answer waits. Perhaps in a place no search team has ever reached. Perhaps in the memory of someone who has never come forward to speak. Every year on September 18th, flowers appear at the trailhead leading to Eagle's Rest. Nobody knows who leaves them, but they are always fresh, always arranged carefully, and always accompanied by a simple note that says the same 3 words. We remember Derek. The last photograph taken before his disappearance continues to circulate online, a frozen moment that captures a man at peace, unaware that his life was about to become an unsolvable mystery. Some images stay with us forever, not because of what they show, but because of what they make us imagine happen next.